welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I am your host, Jessica, and I am here with the author of a really good, meaty fantasy. It's a little historical. It's got some fairy lore. It's got like a lot of backstory and maybe a little romance. You'll have to read the book to really dig in there. But please introduce yourself and tell us about this book.
Hi, my name is Moorea Corrigan, and THISTLEMARSH is my book. It comes out April 21st, and it is about a young woman in the wake of World War I who returns home to her childhood home, which has been left to her, but there's a catch. She needs to fix it up because it's dilapidated within 1 month, or she loses it forever. She starts out thinking this is possible, but actually it's impossible. So she ends up making a ill-advised deal with a irritatingly handsome fairy. And so can they do this in time? Will she get to have her ancestral home? That's the question.
And it was a really fun, refreshing book. So Mouse is the main character, and Thornwood is the thorn in her side, but also very nice to look at. Young fairy, who she actually knew. I believe she called him Dante at one point because, like the fairies, there's a lot of really great fairy lore surrounding Thistlemarsh, which is where her childhood home is. And you should read the book to get into it. But the book, the house is fairy blessed, which means different things depending on who you ask. And he was stone. He was a stone statue that she called Dante before he became unpetrified and revealed himself to be this Thornwood, who was going to enter into a contract with her to help her restore this place. Now, the thing that I found really interesting was that Mouse was really aware of fairy lore, so immediately he tries to kind of get her into this contract by giving her full name, which anybody who's read any fairy tale knows you're not supposed to do. And she has like a really good background in their customs because of a book that has been in her family. So I don't want to spoil everything for everybody. I just kind of gave everyone a quick rundown of the beginning. Where did the idea for this story come from for you? And have you always been a big fan of old fairy lore?
Yeah, so it was kind of an amalgamation of a bunch of things. So first off, I've been a huge fan of fantasy in general from a very young age. And then at the same time, the first time I read Pride and Prejudice was when I was 8, when the film came out. So you can kind of understand how those two sides, like the period drama side and then also the fairy side, intertwined. What I will say is I studied in the UK at university, and when I was there, it was the centennial of World War One. So there was a lot of events about World War One. You could attend like these ceremonies they were doing, and that kind of like took root in the back of my mind in a way. And I was like, oh, this is such an interesting period. And I grew up watching Downton Abbey. So like all of those things like mixing together in my brain in a kind of soup, I think. And then COVID happened and I was in my childhood home living with my family. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this could be like the genesis of an idea of like a period drama, but with these kind of folkloric fairies rather than kind of a Disneyfied fairy. Not that there's anything wrong with Disneyfied fairies, but they're just different. And it's just kind of reaching into that, particularly English and Irish folklore, because Mouse is half English, half Irish. So she has a background in both, and her mother had a particular interest in fairies, and kind of there is are little chapters of the book that her mother gifted to her left in Thistlemarsh. You can read them, and they're inspired by actual fairy tales collected in the 1800s, like by the Grimm's brothers and a Bjornson and Moe and the Lang couple. So those stories really influenced it. So it was so fun to research, and I'm a huge history buff. So I was like, couldn't be better. Like I'm doing Victorian research and I'm doing World War One research. So all of that is really what inspired the story.
I definitely see the notes of Pride and Prejudice.
Fair. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. The enemies to lovers, like rivals to lovers element, and then the family dynamics as well.
Yeah, definitely. No, for sure. And it was good in the sense that until you actually just said that, I was like, oh, right. Like sometimes it's super, super obvious, but it was really just very subtle and perfect in this particular case. Yeah, I really enjoyed Mouse as a character. I enjoyed Thornwood. I enjoyed the Vicar John was really surprising. I was not expecting him to be as great a character as he was. So you told us where it all sort of came from for you. How did you approach writing it? Did you really have a plan in mind? Like, are you, I know people say plotter, pantser. I say all the time on this podcast that I'm not a big fan of the term pantser. I like discovery writer a little bit
Hmm. Yeah.
because it seems a little bit it's I mean I guess some people do fly by the seat of their pants, but like I feel like when people describe it, it's like they're really discovering the story along with the characters. So what's your process like?
I'm kind of a mix. So usually when stories come to me, I don't like driving very much, but it always happens when I'm driving, and usually on the same road, I get like a this image that is the genesis of the novel. So for this one, it was like a ruined castle and a girl being approached by this kind of malevolent, slightly like tempting source and being offered a bargain. So um as far as like that, I had that image, and then I did do a little plotting, but it definitely changed. So it's like I usually use Save the Cat just for the beats, and then it changes from there. But I like fill out a beat sheet with Save the Cat, and then I use that sort of as a guideline as I'm writing. And I usually write beginning to end, although sometimes I write more piecemeal. But yeah, I definitely say that I have a plan, but it's more like a trail map that they're like, okay, you want to get to the top of the mountain, here's all these different ways you could do it, and these are the beats that you have to hit. So that's more of my style.
Yeah, no, I think that that's lovely. And I think like that really is just a testament to writers in general. I always feel bad that like writers are supposed to, like put themselves in one particular category. I think there's just many different ways. This story was just really fresh and interesting. Is this the first story that you've published? How long have you been writing for?
I've been writing for a really long time, so I think I started my first like project, I think when I was about I'd say first grade. And then I finished my first quote unquote book when I was in fifth grade, which was very short. It was like a Princess Mononoke like ripoff. But I had this really good teacher, and she had me read it aloud to the class in little segments. And it was so cool to have like this experience where I was like hearing an audience reaction and all of that. Then I wrote my first like full length novel when I was probably from middle school to high school, and it actually was published by a small publisher in Colorado. Unfortunately, the publisher shut down within 6 months of the book coming out, so it didn't really like sell anything. And also, unfortunately, my publisher passed away really shortly afterwards as well. So it was like kind of an implosion. However, I knew from the experience, I was like, I enjoyed the experience. I like being involved in publishing. And so in the end, I do work in publishing in my day job. I work at an academic publisher. I have my master's in publishing. So that was really like a great thing. And then when I was in college, I was also writing books, and none of them have appeared in print and probably never will, but they're out, in the world and in my little box that I have them in my room.
So how did you get to sell this one? Like, were you like, this is absolutely the one I'm going to go for?
Well, I had queried the other book that I wrote in college that I finished and felt was polished. And I was actually talking to this agent about it, and super helpful agent, amazing agent, Dawn Song, and they said, Moorea, this is a urban fantasy. It's not going to sell at a traditional publisher. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I love, and this was right before COVID. So then I sat down with THISTLEMARSH and I was like, oh, this is like such a treat to write and I'm really enjoying it. And I presented it at a workshop and they were like, oh my gosh, you have to, this is like so polished and so good. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought I'd have to work on this for a lot longer before I got there, but I'll start, querying it. And I queried for about a summer. I think I signed with my agent in October, and the rest is history. So I felt like what's so funny is what I keep getting feedback on is people will read Thistlemarsh when they're sick. This has happened quite a few times, or taking care of someone who's sick, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is such a balm. And the same thing happened with my agent. So I'm like, okay, got to give it to people when they're like down for the count.
Well, I mean, it does kind of give me that feeling. Like when I was reading it, it did have sort of like a secret garden feel to it, which I suppose would be a book that I probably would have read when I was sick as a kid. Yeah, but it is really like really a nice read, even though it goes, it has some dark, history and like it deals with some serious topics. I did love the fairy tales that you talk about, or the ones that you sort of reworked a little bit from traditional fairy tales. Do you have a favorite within like actually, like that you like to read and a favorite that you told in the book?
I think my favorite fairy tale is either, oh, okay. I love Rumpelstiltskin. It has a lot of baggage, especially with anti-Semitism. And the one that I would recommend as if you like Rumpelstiltskin, you should read Naomi Novik's Spinning Silver. Oh my gosh, that book is such a great interpretation and reworking of that fairy tale. It's amazing. As far as in the book, I think my favorite is probably, oh no. Okay, I'm gonna choose one. There are three or four of them. And I think my favorite to write was the Fairy Bridegroom story, which is a kind of retelling of the robber bridegroom slash Bluebeard. And researching that was really fun because there are so many interesting retellings of that story. And there's a really interesting English one called Mr. Fox that I kind of used a bunch of little
That
images from that.
so yeah, so that particular version is actually that's how I came to that story. And it's my favorite. It's really, really good. And yeah, actually one of my closest friends who I met in library school, we were taking a class together and we had to tell a traditional tale, and that's the one she told. And we're still really good friends today. So Mr. Fox is super dark, guys. Read it though. It's good, but it is super
Also
dark.
important, not about a fox. It's just
Not
his
about a
name.
fox. Not about a
Not about a
fox.
fox.
Yes. Yes, not about a fox. But it's super good. But it also is just like it has a special place in my heart too.
And it's also interesting, it's in the like fairy tale canon because it was, I think it was the famous one was recorded by Sir Walter Scott. So it has some of his flair in it, even though it's a very short little piece, but it has that kind of Scottish like folklore flair to it. And I think the heroine is named Lady Mary. So every time I read it, I just think of Downton Abbey and Lady Mary from Downton Abbey. So yeah, it's a treat.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it is funny because like when I was reading it, I'm like, yeah, I totally see threads of that coming in. Um, so again, I don't want to give too much away about the story. Would you return to this world?
I think I would return to the world, but not necessarily the characters. I think for now their stories are sort of summed up, as except for I'd say some of the minor characters maybe might appear in other things, but at the moment I'm working on some projects that are set in the same fairy world, but in different time periods. So they're focusing on different elements of the fairy history and the intersection between humans and fairy.
I am much looking forward to reading more from you. Marsh is wonderful. It is due at the end of April.
Yes, April 21st in the US, 23rd in the UK.
Check it out. Thank you, Moorea Corrigan. This has been lovely.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on.
All right, so we are going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.